Shut up and sit down.
Welcome to the Bricks King podcast, where I'm going to bend your ear about Lego, review those amazing bricks of plastic, and discuss what is new and up and coming around the Lego world. I'm your minifig host, Matt. Let's build on it. Welcome in, everybody. How are we doing today? Another early 2023 review, this time of Ninjago. Ninjago. Now, this wave is not the typical where it kind of goes hand in hand with the current season. This is more of an offshoot that, if you recall last year in 2022, somewhere around the beginning, closer to the beginning of the year, what Lego chose to do is create more Ninjago sets, but not just have it centered around a cartoon. It was more so where kids could make up their own story. So first up that we have today, we have Lloyd's Mech Battle Evo. Evo meaning these things can grow and change, and your last bag of any of these Evo sets is essentially making it powering it up even bigger and more bolder and stuff like that. So that is essentially what you're dealing with. The set number, if you're curious, 71781, has 223 pieces and retails for a cool $20 bucks, 20 euros. Real nice price point. Plus you get two smaller mechs, but you get two. So let's go ahead and talk about what you do get. Since we have a good guy and a bad guy here, let's talk about the good guy mech first. Lloyd's Mech, actually a really cool little build. These little mechs just I just love little mechs. Anyway, so you have this tiny little mech. You have a section, the cockpit section for Lloyd. We'll get to his minifig in a little bit, but his cockpit section folds up. It's that solid piece that we have seen many, many times for the smaller mechs. It just folds up. There is a printed 2x2 here in the front that has the logo, I guess, of Lloyd. This is gold, obviously. His color is green, and he also has been gold in the past, so definitely the color scheme works here. The shoulders, we have some pauldrons that are out here. We got these big old flap slope pieces, textured slope pieces in gold. The shoulder joints are on mini balls, little ball joints here. We have the Nexonite shields with a nice print on it, actually, on both sides. It's pretty nice. The elbows are locked. They use that one whole solid piece there that we've come accustomed to for smaller mechs and stuff. They use them on the knees to lock knees as well. And then we move down. You've got a little wrist that's on a ball joint and clips for hands. He's got a larger sword in one hand and his tiny little golden sword in the other. His tiny little golden sword that is being held in the opposite hand is for Lloyd. So he hops out of the mech, he can go straight into battle. Now down at the hip joints, what we have here is we have two little small ball joints yet again for the hips, some gold pieces there on the thighs, lock knees, same piece that is used here. No stickers, no prints down here at the bottom, unfortunately. And then you have ball joints for the ankle. It can spin 360 degrees. It can fold forward quite a bit, but backward it is blocked, because there is a nice little modified plate that has a clip receiving end here with a cone attached to it. It's supposed to look like blasters or something like that, where he can take off or something like that, but really nice in the way that is done. On the rear of this thing, this is part of the Evo process here. He has this big fat old blades that are in the back. We've got some blades, one on each side. Those can actually spin around, or you can take them off. It is completely up to you. And then just above where the cockpit sits, he's got this little flag that we have. It is coming with all the newer style Ninjago. Again, not the cartoon theme, the animated series, but its own right. And it's got some like green flames that are going on here. Lloyd's minifig, he is adorned in gold. Love this color. Standard ninja helmet mask covering at this time. He's got his two faces. He's got his angry face and he's got his happy face. So let's move to the baddie that we get here. I love the new Bone Warriors that are the bad guys here. I think they have turned out really, really well. I want to talk about the minifig first because they've got these gorgeous colors for the hands. We've not seen in a bad guy, I don't think ever, in just about any series, any theme. So I really like those. Good printing on the torso and on the back. It looks like a bad guy. He's got a skull for a like a belt buckle. Got some wraps going across him and stuff like that. Nice printing on the boots down at the feet as well. He does have a kind of a shoulder pad sticking out on the one side with some horns. Nothing on the other side. He does have the horned hair piece, which originally came out for March of the Oni for you Ninjago buffs out there. His minifig head is all black and has a lightish green print. I really like that. It almost looks like it's glow in the dark, but it is not. So let's move on to his mech. His mech is absolutely cool. I love the way this thing turned out. It's just different than the other mech. Now, we have very similar features, ball joints at the hips, lock knees, ball joints at the ankles, a little bit more flexibility on these ankles compared to Lloyd's mech. Ball joints at the shoulders, again, nothing at the elbows. They are locked, and nothing here for the wrist because the arms are actually smaller, shorter than the Lloyd mech. He does have a double clip in one hand and a single clip on the other side. On the back end of this thing, you have two of the pack of weapons that you get. He has two of these kind of dagger-esque swords. I really like the way these look. There's a lot of detail there in that sculpt, and you get so many bone weapons across this wave. You're just going to have tons. Even in a single bag, you're going to have many that are left over. So then up on the head here, you have a big old disc that is used here. If you recall, well, back to like Ninjago season number 2, if you're a Ninjago fan, those guys had hats on, kind of like circular domes to a certain degree. These, they look like umbrellas, big old umbrella pieces. Anyway, so he has that for the hat of this guy that covers his head and protects him. The front that opens and closes to once you get your minifig in or out has some teeth on it, has a bone on it as well. And then the weapon that comes with this thing is a big old kind of bone bow. It's got 2 swords. It's got 2 sais attached to it. It's actually really neat. So your minifig just stands in here. You lock him into place. You put the hat part down, and you've got a pretty sharp little warrior here. Good posability to it, good playability with it. And it's nice to be able to get something of similar size with this mech. Usually what ends up happening when they do a mech like the Lloyd mech, you end up with a baddie that is not as, large or comparable, or really you kind of end up with either just a mech or you end up with this dinky minifig and set piece to fight against. So it's nice to be able to get that. Up next, we have Cole's Earth Dragon Evo 71782. Has 285 pieces and retails for $35, 35 euros. And it's a different take on his Earth Dragon, but I kind of like it. So let's discuss what it has and what it can do. So first things first, with this dragon, again, it's an Evo, so there's another bag near the end where you can so choose to add more battle to this thing, add more aggressiveness or not. Now, if you choose not to, this is a modular ability with this set. You can take this thing apart and actually take a section out of it, which is actually really nice. If you want to have it look more like a baby dragon or something like that, it's always good to be able to do something like that. Now, when you do have this thing in full mode here, there's a lot going on. Posability is not the best, which we'll discuss here in a moment, but there's a lot going on. So the first thing that you notice is the massive horns that are on this thing. I live in Texas. There's longhorns everywhere. I drive down the road. I see about 30 of them, either direction I leave my home. So you have these giant horns attached to the molded head. This is a solid head piece, solid jaw piece, and then there's printing that is on the skull as well. Typical standard jaw for this kind of stuff, where it's jointed in the back with some clips. The 1x3 modified plate that has 2 clips on it. It gives you a different ability to either give an overbite or an underbite or just an even bite to the jaw. Just makes it a lot of fun. You can really open that thing up, get it into different poses as well. But these giant horns, these giant horns, they're super thick. And then they come to a claw tip on the end. It's really nice how they stick out there. It just makes it look even more fierce than what it originally did. Now, this thing is very chesty. The head actually does not move, by the way, which is kind of a disappointment. You can't tilt it left, right, up, or down, which kind of sucks, but unfortunately it is what it is. So, big chesty thing that we've got going on here. You've got some quills. They look like quills. They're giant claws that they have adorning just behind the head, kind of sweeping backwards onto the main part of the body. Some more, there's two more, one on each side on the front legs. Front legs, they have a ball joint at the shoulder joint and a click joint for the feet. Then you have the two massive talons that are down in the front, which is actually pretty neat. But this thing also has orange wings that are attached to it. They are clipped into place, and they do have some swivel to them. It actually does look pretty nice. You can get this thing in a swept back motion as if it is maybe flying. I don't think this thing is really meant to fly. I think these are just kind of more of a defense piece or something like that. Then moving back further towards the body, we've got some stickers that are on the actual shoulder, where the shoulder meat would be on this little dragon. And then you have your big old seat up here in gold that Lloyd Cole is going to sit on. It has another flag, the 2x3 plate or tile that they have. This one has like an orange flame that is sticking up out of, I guess, the ground or the earth or whatever. So you do have that there as well. Moving to the rear, this is where things kind of get sleek and simple. It starts to taper down. Here's where you can remove a section of the build if you so choose. It's a small section, but you can remove it. There are two Nexonite shields and some ingots back here. The shields have two stickers, one on each side. And then we move back towards the rear legs, and the legs are actually super tiny. They're very short, and it gives that interesting pose for this thing. It almost looks like a lizard, how it kind of sits more upward because the back end is tapered so far down, especially with these little legs. So there is click joints to display this up and down. And then you have a ball joint for the ankle for the feet. That thing can rotate 360 degrees and has good flexibility downward, but upward it is hit. It gets into the way of the plates, and it just doesn't do. I'm not a big fan of that. Back to the tail, we have a big old fat tail. It's built the same exact way as the horns are that are in the front. It can swivel around, so you can get some play there. There is a ball joint for the very end of the tail, and you have two large teeth claw pieces that are down here on the end. So it's a massive dragon. It's a really fun dragon to build for something as small as it is. So Lloyd's minifig, before I move on to the bad guy, Lloyd has an angry face with those big bushy eyebrows and a happy face. He comes in black and orange because those are his colors. And then you have he does come with a sword. He also does come with his brick built hammer. The printing on him looks good. A lot of black and orange, obviously, that is going on here. But other than that, it's a nice little minifig, standard kind of fare for Ninjago. Then we move on to another bone warrior here, and there's different bone warriors. It's pretty much the same thing across the wave. It's just, they're wearing slightly different garments and stuff like that. He does have a big red hat on that we have seen with Ninjago for years now. He's got a bone sword, and he's also got the piece that goes on the neck of the torso. And what that is it's got two big teeth that stick upward, and then you see a row of smaller teeth. I don't know if that's, obviously it's not his mouth, but I'm assuming it is meant to be, the bone theme and everything like that. His print is almost similar to the other one. No, they're not similar at all. The legs are similar, but this guy has a bunch of chains hanging on him on the front, on the back. It looks a little bit different. It looks a little scarier, but the face is the same as the last one that we talked about. Nice little minifig. Nice to see different torsos. Now, again, you're going to see a large repeat as we move further across this wave, but it is still really nice. Then you have this Bone Warrior Spider. It's a 6-leg spider here that he's got going on, and or maybe it's a scorpion. And then it's got this big old piece that is in the back, another type of claw/leg piece here, and that swivels upward or downward. You can imagine, you sit your minifig here in the center, and then you have that piece. It can come up, it can, you can pretend that somebody's attacking him, and it comes up and it, stings them, whatever. We're not going to get too violent here today. But it's a nice little minifig to have with a bad guy. It's always fun to get, stuff like that to be able to play with, and it's just extra, right? So moving on to the next one here, we have Kai's Mech Rider Evo 71783, 312 pieces for this beautiful thing. And well, it retails for $45, 45 euros. And this thing is actually really, really large. It is meant to have a mech ride on the motorcycle, which we'll talk about here in a moment. So let's go ahead and talk about what it has and what it doesn't have and where it may lack. All right, first things first, let's talk about Kai's mech, because this is similar to the last two tinier mechs that we had talked about, because this is a tiny mech as well. So similar ideas here. Let's go ahead and start. The chest piece is identical. It does not have a print, does not have a sticker on the front, which is kind of sad. The minifig in here is meant to stand as well. Anyway, shoulders, ball joints again, locked elbows, and there are no wrist joints here. You do have these newer claw pieces that are used, a little bit thicker. They almost look like bony type fingers. You get 3 of them that are clipped into place on each hand, kind of nightmarish, like some kind of nightmare style monster you would expect, like in a cheesy Halloween movie or something like that. He does have these shoulder pads that are up here, and they have the golden claw teeth that are sticking out the top of them. They are in black, by the way, the little shoulder pad pieces here, the little shield pieces to protect the upper shoulders. There are 2 stickers, one on each side here. I'm not really sure what it says. I think it's more so, Kai's name in that form of writing. Just above that, here you have your flag again with this 2x3 tile. It has what I think is supposed to be a ninja conjuring up the fire, which would be Kai. Now, moving down to the legs, ball joints at the hips, locked knees, and ball joints at the feet. The feet are different, obviously, on this mech than, the others, which is nice. They slightly change things up just a wee bit. So one of the nice things that you have about the hands, I forgot to mention, and then we'll talk about the giant sword this thing is carrying, but they have Technic pin holes to attach this sword. So you have an opportunity to be able to put that in either hand if you so choose. The fingers, the claws don't really wrap around it, but they do give it an idea, a representation of wrapping it around. So this sword is on a giant Technic axle, and it has a giant blade on this thing. These are the newer style blades that have all these little cutouts and stuff on them. They are thinner, but they are unbelievably massive. So this thing can kind of rotate in the hand a little bit because it is on that Technic pin and the receiving hole. It just looks good to kind of have it across the body. It looks very menacing when you're going to fight. It does get in the way of the motorcycle, though, which is what we need to talk about next. So the motorcycle, this thing is absolutely wicked. The tires on this thing are ungodly massive. This is by far the largest motorcycle I have seen for the Ninjago Wave. It rivals Kilo's motorcycle from the season 8, I believe. It's similar to that. It's definitely not, to that degree, but this just looks like a giant off-road motorcycle, which is actually really neat. So let's start from the front. You have 2 swords that are sticking out of the front here, and those are locked into place. They do not move. They are Technic pinned into a Technic brick on the side. Then you move just slightly to the rear. You can see some engine style decoration and stuff with clip pieces that are used here, some rounded slopes that are right here. And then you move upward. You have the big chunky section of this motorcycle. By the way, the radiator grille in the front is actually gorgeous in the way that it is done. Does have some lights. And then it moves up to these new shoulder/shield pieces, the triple tiered ones that we have seen with Ninjago. We see them on mechs all the time. Most definitely something that we have seen in Monkey Kid, and it's starting to trickle out into other things as well. There is a sticker that is up on the front of the bike. There's stickers that are on the side for where the handlebars are in a flame color. And then you move back to the rear of the handlebars. Now the handlebars we'll talk about here in a little bit, but definitely still a little bit of an issue with those. They do have some golden tassels that are hanging here, which kind of get in the way. And then you have this gorgeously carved out seat. It's kind of rounded. It looks like a super bike seat. I'm definitely a giant motorcycle connoisseur. So nice tailing that goes to it, narrows up and thins out. He does have a screen that is in front of him. He's apparently going 84 miles per hour or kilometers per hour, however you prefer to choose to go. But what I do like underneath all of that is you do have all of this engine detail. And you kind of have to. You kind of have to have that just for that playability and that more realism type stuff. Now, they do have foot pegs that are on here because you need it for your mech. There are golden flames that are on click hinges, orange flames sticking in golden cones that are on click hinges here. And what they do is they just kind of shoot out the back. That's just the exhaust of the bike. Now, aside from the big tires, you got to put your big mech on this puppy, and it is a challenge. So my suggestion is to take off the sword and try to get your mech on. Now, it does take a lot of time to be able to get your mech in a perfect position. It's if you think back to like action figures, is maybe you were a kid or something like that. It's kind of a similar way. You can kind of wrap the claws around this thing, but it doesn't ever really attach. But you can play with it. The mech is loose on it. If you plan on playing with it as a child, or you're planning on buying this for somebody that is planning on playing with this, it is most definitely something where you are going to need two hands, one to hold onto the motorcycle and one to hold onto the mech. Now you can hold on in the middle, but I really wish there was something that maybe a tail that stuck up off the back that you could play with it much easier. It does look nice sitting on the mech. You can either choose to put your sword on or leave it off. I notice a weight distribution issue when it is on because of that giant blade that is on the sword. So that is completely up to you and how you choose to do it. It looks really sharp sitting there. I was a giant fan of how this looked just sitting there, just being dangerous. So really like that. So let's talk about the minifigs. You get 4, which is okay. But again, there's some things we'll talk about that I wish we would have. So Kai has his standard face where he's got his angry face and his happy face. He comes in the red and that flamish orange color. His gi that he is wearing, his torso, his coloring, his printing, he is red mainly. He's got that orange arm as well. But he's got some flame printing across his chest that goes slightly around the back as well. I really like the way that is done. Then we move on to Nia. Nia comes in this set, and you'll see Nia in another set later. But Nia, she's got a golden sword here, just a little tiny one, minifig scale. And then she has that shoulder pad piece that is able to adorn the sword in the rear. She can stick it in there and not have to use it. She comes in her standard color of that lighter blue for Nia. It's not the same blue as Jay. If you're familiar with Ninjago, the standard helmet that they have for Ninjago. And then she's got her nice printing that is on this dark bluish gray and gunmetal gray torso, which is actually really nice. But she's got her kind of water waves that are going on there in her symbol as well. Then we move on to one of your baddies. He is the chain guy again. We are getting another chain guy. Same kind of mouthpiece, same red hat, same chains on the torso, same sword. kind of like it's not a tomahawk, but it almost reminds me of like a tomahawk style axe or something like that. Then we move on to the other bad guy. This is a newer bad guy that we haven't seen yet. This guy is more of a higher level dude because he comes with a black cape, that fabric cape that has the holes in it. He has a bone sword, and then his helmet is that more of an open-faced helmet, more of that style, that samurai style helmet. And then it has a bone piece that is sticking on the top because there is a clip on top of this helmet. His torso is slightly different. Like I said, it has a skull in the center of the chest. It has a printed chain that comes down each side. And then he's got this weird kind of looking belt that it looks like tiny little eyes the whole way across and wraps around the back. In the rear, though, it almost looks like you can see a spine here. I don't think that's probably the case, but it looks kind of weird with the texturing, with the what looks like texturing with the print. It's kind of bizarre looking. So kudos to the graphic design team for that one, because I thought it was quite unique, quite interesting, to be honest. I honestly did not see that one coming. Not at all. So, this set as a whole is a really fun set. There's a lot to it. There's a lot of playability feature to it. It's just fun in general to be able to enjoy and put a mech on a giant motorcycle. Even if you don't put the mech on the motorcycle, you can imagine, I don't know, build up something else. You could technically put on a minifig. It's not to the scale at all, but you could do it. You absolutely could do it and still have some fun with it. Like I said, the only issue that I had is getting the mech on there and staying on there because there's no way to clip it into place. But it is really cool to have that idea of a mech riding a motorcycle with your minifig in the mech. It is pretty cool. So the last one that we're going to talk about on this episode is Nia's Water Dragon Evo. Again, Evo meaning this thing can kind of come apart. You can add different things to it. You can choose to add or not add. That is completely up to you. 71800 is its set number. It has 173 pieces, and this retails for $20, 20 euros as well. So let's talk about what Nia's Water Dragon has to offer. This immediately, when I saw this, reminded me of something from Elves. The little dragons, if you are familiar with the Elves the theme back before they decided to cancel it, we had immaculate colors and some really cool animals at that point in time. Not large animals, but something similar to this. I miss Elves so much. Man, it was so cool. So Nia's Dragon, we have that really, really light blue that we have seen from that light blue Fiat. And then you have her darker blue as well. So starting at the front, we've got her dragon with the water pieces that are sticking out the top of the head. Two-toned jaw here, again, clipped into place just like the other dragon that we talked about with that one modified 1x3 with the two clips on it. The light bluish lower jaw is nice. The upper jaw, the skull part of this has the printed eyes and some texturing of scales that is in the dark blue. Now, at least this thing, it doesn't have swivel, but it can go up and down. It is on a click joint, so you can at least get it in that kind of pose. I really wish the other one was able to do that, so it's unfortunate that is not possible. So moving to just behind the head here, instead of it being like this chunky dragon like Cole's is, it kind of has this weird long neck that goes, so you go from a kind of a straight body, and then you have this 90-degree bend that goes straight up, and you have this big old chunky neck that is going on here. But they use some tiles here to get some nice roundedness for the chest. I really like the way that is done. You have the white, then the light blue, and then the dark blue. It looks really, really sharp. I'm a giant fan of that. So off of there, you have the shoulder joints. The shoulder joints are on tiny little ball joints. Then we move and have these golden shoulder pads here with some spike texture to them. And then we move to the locked elbows and then the ankles that have a ball joint on them that can only rotate so far to the rear, but they can rotate to the forward position quite well. Giant white claws that are down here on the front of this. There are two on each foot. But just behind where that joint is for the ankle, you have these smaller sword pieces that are attached into bar holders that are attached into clips. Just kind of gives it like this feathering idea. Not so much that it's going to fly, but it gives it this. I don't know what kind of animal this would kind of be, but that's where I think, elves really made sense to me in kind of the way that this was done. So you have the sleek body that goes to the rear, the hip joints here, small ball joints. And then you have this nice rounded area where it's almost kind of like the knee. Then you have this large hitch ball joint that they use for hitches on trailers and stuff. And that has your swivel of your ankle for your foot. And that thing can get into a bunch of different positions in its own right. We move to the tail, and you have multiple ball joints back here to be able to pose your tail in many different ways. It's a 3-layered section. For each section of the tail, you have white, and then you have the dark bluish gray that has the ball joint receiving end, and then you have dark blue, and then a trans cheese wedge piece that is in here. And then the very end of it, just another ball joint here, a cone with a golden eye sticking out the back of it. Now, your minifigs are quite nice, I gotta say. Lloyd, we are getting Lloyd in green, not gold here. His face, standard Lloyd, smiling, angry. And then you have his darker green, and then lighter, that not neon green, that lime green for that headband that goes around the top. He has a golden sword as well, just minifig scale sword with a shoulder pad that can hold the sword in the rear. A katana, not a sword. Anyway, green hands, and he's got that nice printing of his gi that reaches down, obviously, down past the waist. But he has some nice green scaling on the front and on the rear for the dragon that adorns across his back. It'd have been nice had it come across the front because you can't see it on the back when you have the shoulder pad type katana receiver attached. But nevertheless, it is still a really nice minifig. Now, the one thing that I did forget to mention before we get to Nia, you do have the little seat with the flag, again, that tile piece. You do have that seat. It can come off if you want it to come off. Much easier than some of the others, but her power is, it's got this bone sword that is in there, and you have 2 hands that are reaching out to grab it. Nia is identical to what we just talked about. Same exact printing, same exact face, same exact ability to hold a sword, and everything like that. So it's not bad. It's not a bad selection of minifigs. I kind of wish we had a few more, but at day's end, it's really not that bad. So let's go ahead and talk about the baddie minifig that you get here. This is another different torso print. This guy, same head as the ones that we've talked about, same red hat. He does have this little backpack type carrier that has 4 tiny little bars that are able to have clips, all kinds of different things attached to his back. He is carrying a bone shuriken. If you're not sure what that is, go ahead and go look that up, what a shuriken is. Anyway, so on the back end of this thing, you have 2 little bar attachment clips that come into place here, and you have 2 bone swords, one on each side that are pointed downward, and then you have that kind of tomahawk / axe that they have here, one on each side, and those are pointed in an upward direction. Really fierce looking in the way this is done. Not a flying guy. I mean, these aren't wings, but, it looks kind of scary. It looks really tremendous in the way that it is done. He does have a belt buckle, a printed belt buckle. It has a skull, and then it has some spikes to it. And then he also has a wrap, kind of like, think of like Arabian style, older. I'm thinking of the movie The Mummy from Brendan Fraser time, where he, you see the guys out there in the desert, and they kind of have their wrap around their head, but also kind of around their neck to keep protection from the sun. That's what this reminds me of. But again, it's just printed. It's not like he's wearing some robe around him. Now, I got to say, as a whole so far, these are pretty good sets. The Evo idea behind these is really cool. The price point, I think, is pretty solid for all of these. The motorcycle, frankly, I am a big fan of. The price per part, price per piece, whatever you want to refer to it as. Some of these are a little bit heavier as far as that goes. The motorcycle is at 14.5. A lot of people prefer, that 10-cent range, and I completely understand that it's more of the happy wheelhouse there. You do get that with the mechs, Lloyd's mechs and stuff, but some of the others not so much. So in the next episode, we do have 3 more sets to discuss, just not enough time. So we have Zane's Ice Dragon that's coming up, Jay's Titan Mech, which you are going to love. I love it, but it is completely different in the way that it was done. And then we have a creative ninja box with some set pieces and stuff like that for obviously a different price point. So that's going to wrap up this episode. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you enjoyed the 2023 waves of everything that is coming out, especially Ninjago. So until we meet again, I'm your minifig host, Matt. Let's build on it.